The only difference between telling the truth to abuse somebody and telling the truth to serve somebody is the intention of the heart. As long as you're coming from love and best intentions, I believe you not only can say everything that you need to, you must. That's your job. I take on the gatekeeper perspective. Even though the reality may not be this, you have to show up believing that you may be the first or the last person who will ever tell them the actual truth of their situation. And could you live with yourself knowing that they never got it solved because you weren't willing to stand for their transformation?
This is Experts Unleashed, revealing how professionals and entrepreneurs transform experience into income while positively impacting the world. For years, Joel Irway has helped entrepreneurs develop and launch their expert-based businesses, growing them beyond 6 and even 7 figures a year. Now, a professional expert serves their community through paid training, education, or service. This podcast will help you design and execute your plan to become a 6 or 7 figure expert without a massive team. To get more information or apply now, visit theperfectexpert.com. Let's get started.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another very special episode of Experts Unleashed. And I am super excited to share with you today's guest, Jim Padilla from Gain the Edge. Jim and I connected through a mutual group that we are a part of. And I'm very excited to talk about his story, talk about his expertise on the world of outsourced sales. So before we get into that, Jim, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Joel. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm looking forward to this conversation, Jim. I've heard your name and I've heard about your company for a little while now. I know a lot about your reputation. It's all very positive. So I've been very much interested in this conversation. And so why don't you do us a favor? Just give us a quick 30-second background about, who is Jim? What is your company? And then we'll kick off the interview.
Yeah, I have this crazy company called Gain the Edge, along with my wife, who is my partner in life and business. We've been blessed to become this awesome outsourced sales solution for service industry and coaching and consulting experts. And basically, they generate traffic and generate leads, and we close the sales for them. We have this, 120 people on our sales team, all virtual, and it's just been a whirlwind of a ride for the last 5 years.
120 salespeople.
Yeah.
That sounds like a systems miracle of managing all of these inbound calls and training them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a blast. It's, if somebody would have told me 5 years ago, all the things I would have had to learn and grow through to get here, I probably would have said, no, thanks, I'll pass. But we've learned so much about business and life and people and results and scaling. It's just been a massive blessing to be able to know that we provide parts of living or all of living for, hundreds of people and indirectly thousands and even millions through our clients. So It's an awesome place to be.
Cool. What do your clients specialize in? Do you guys have specific industries that you look to work in? I mean, are you guys very broad? Give us a little bit of idea of what you guys, of what types of markets you work in.
Yeah, definitely. We specialize in soft sales. So we don't typically sell products. So we don't move things that require a physical demonstration or a presentation. It's usually a consultative sales approach, primarily inbound traffic. So most of our clients are coaches and consultants who understand their market really well, and they generate leads. And their real pain point is usually that they're no longer the highest and best use of their time is to hire, train, and run salespeople or do sales themselves.
It's a pretty fascinating business model, like running a sales team, running a sales floor for somebody else. Where did this idea come up with? You said you've been doing it for 5 years. So
yeah, well, I've been running sales teams my whole life, pretty much. I mean, literally, even when I was a teenager, we did the lemonade stand, but we had all kinds of other products, and I used to have stations on every corner, and I was running them. So it just came somehow in my DNA. This model actually kind of stumbled on us on accident. We were helping people with some consulting on some sales opportunities and teaching them our process of sales. And we had an expert, actually, Bill Barron, who's a well-known figure in the coaching industry. He was our first client in this realm. And it was like, look, how about instead of teaching us, you just do it? Can you run our launch? And I was like, I had no idea. I'd never worked a launch, never ran a launch, but I said, yes, we took it on. I brought on a dozen friends and clients and said, hey, let's go make money for a few weeks, crushing some sales. And it was a catastrophe, a train wreck of an experience because nobody knew what they were doing. It was Bill's first big launch. It was our first launch at all. And, $1.6 million later, it was a huge windfall. Everybody was happy. And then there was like a line at my door of people like, hey, can you help us do that too? And a niche was born. Wow. So now 5 years later, $250 million of sales later, we've got thousands of dollars worth of software and support, hundreds of team, a track of great expertise and experience and results. And it's just been a whirlwind of a journey.
Yeah. What are some of the highest ticket price points? I'm assuming you're selling like $5,000 packages and above, right? It's got to make sense because you got to pay your commission. You got to pay a decent commission for your salesperson, right? So
yeah. We usually start the floor for us is $1,000, but that's usually in a launch mode. So if we do $1,000 or $2,000 sale, that's because we're doing hundreds of them over a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Typically on an ongoing basis, it's usually at the 5K all the way up to 100K and above.
Yep. Awesome. So what's interesting, I wonder if there's even a connection here. Back in your days of running sales for lemonade stands, right? Is there any sort of similarities that you can draw between selling lemonade and selling a $100,000 coaching program or mastermind?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I'm gonna take you on a little journey back because it's relevant. It didn't all start as a child, but that's where this is going. My parents were 16 and 17 when I was born, so they had no clue what they were doing. My dad took off. My mom responded primarily to a tough situation with rage and fear. So I grew up getting the crap kicked out of me and abused. And she did everything wrong you could do as a 16-year-old mother would probably be expected to do. And, shortly I ended up in, foster care at 13, on the streets at 16, and in jail at 19. And I learned at a very young age that I had to figure out how to create the environment around me that it would bend my direction so that primarily to save my own skin. I would literally spend every waking moment thinking about how do I influence, what happens when I get home, and how do I engage this environment so that she's not going to want to hurt me. So how do I make her not feel threatened? Because that's what I thought was going on. I didn't realize it was, at 6 years old, it's not your fault. But that's how I started surviving every single environment, on the streets, in foster care, at jail. And, I look 25 years later, I'm making millions of dollars teaching other people how to make sales by getting the environment around them to be influenced to their direction so that people will not feel threatened, lower their guard, and trust you and give you a credit card. Right? I had no idea that's what was going to happen, but that's just what started. It was a natural byproduct of my life. So I got really good at a young age at knowing what to say to disarm people, make people feel confident, make them feel comfortable, understand that I'm not a threat. And, it was just a natural skill set that I evolved because I had to.
Hmm. So you said it really kind of revolves around setting the right environment in that sales conversation. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, definitely. Because people don't care about what you're doing. They care about what they're doing. And in a sales engagement especially, but anytime two people connect, somebody's trying to get something from somebody. And you want to be able to be of greatest value to the person. I really resonate with Gary Vaynerchuk. He always talks about being the 51%, right? I want people to die owing me. And so I'm always, every relationship, I'm like, how can I make sure you win as a result of being around me? And it just feels good for me because then I know you're going to feel good around me and you're going to know I'm not here to take from you. I'm here to serve you. And if that means we can do business together, fantastic. But that's not usually my objective anymore. It's get on a conversation, provide as much value to you as I possibly can. And as a result, you're probably going to either want to hire me or refer me or we're just just creates a great relationship. And that's my desire. And then we've never made more money, and, as a result of anything else besides doing that.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like your approach isn't necessarily high pressure or getting the commitment. It's lowering the guard and letting the customer kind of sell themselves.
Definitely. And then here's a fascinating thing that actually happens once you lower the guard, then it gets real. Now, instead of asking permission, I know in the coaching world, people are always taught, I'm going to ask permission to ask a difficult question. Once you lower the guard, now there's nothing left but truth. So now you're automatically going to ask the tough question because it's what's the right question. I'm now going to ask you, why you actually think that's true. Instead of saying, I'm going to ask you a tough question and maybe okay. Now, I have implied consent by the fact that you have gotten on the phone with me and I'm here to help you solve a problem, which means solving it may mean I have to ask you something you don't want to hear. And maybe I don't even want to ask, but I have to ask it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not about feeling good. It's about doing good.
How difficult is it to get your sales team in the right frame of mind? Because there's tons of different sales methodologies, and I've worked with different sales people and sales teams. You've got 100, what was it, 150, 160?
Yeah, in our network, yeah.
How difficult is it to find the right salespeople and get them trained under your methodology? Obviously that's got to be of crucial importance, but is that something that has come easy to you, or has that been a big learning experience?
Well, it's a never-ending learning experience for sure, but we have gained quite an expertise. And actually, if you hone down what is the one thing we do better than anything else, it's attract top-tier branded sales talent who are on fire for peak performing. We don't look for the best salespeople. We look for the people who are overachiever opportunities. So when we're recruiting a salesperson for you, it's the person who's the best fit for you. It doesn't mean it's the best salesperson. It means that in your environment, with the right preparation, working with your clients, selling your product, delivering your mission, and being on purpose for you as a brand extension, they will thrive. My job is to make sure I'm a matchmaker. We put the right people in the right places. So like when we work with people, our number one deliverable is for your clients to have a seamless branded experience. So they feel like they're talking to you when they're talking to us. Second goal is to make a sale.
Yeah, because that's super important for any expert to maintain their brand, because you don't want somebody who'd be, number one, enrolling the wrong clients, I'm assuming, right? And
right.
If they're not a good fit, you also don't want to upset that potential prospect because it's still related to their brand.
Definitely. And we put a lot of work and time and effort into creating what we call recruiting funnels. So we pull people into a sequence instead of vetting for, we don't take resumes. We don't do any of that stuff. When people come through the door, we're looking for values fit. We're looking for brand fit. We're looking for who you are as a person. Do you align with our environment, our way of doing things, our way of being? And then once you get through those sequences, then we put you into, vetting calls where we're challenging to see, do you actually have the skill set necessary? Then we put them on role play calls. And then from there, after that, then we start interviewing. So it's a lengthy process for people to come through before we ever hire them. And usually we're bringing in about 1 out of 10 people that come through the funnel end up staying. And we hire placement for people as well. So if people are looking for salespeople, instead of hiring our team, they hire us to source sales talent for them. And we go through the same process with them.
Fantastic. I can only imagine managing 150 some odd salespeople has to be a work of art. That has to be, because they're all selling different products, right?
Right.
How has that evolved over the years for you in terms of, you've got all these different offers, and that just sounds like a lot of work. How has that process evolved for you since when you started?
Man, that's a great question. It's something that it's a moving target. Every time we master it, something else changes. And literally every single client we work with is different to some degree. They're all similar, but there's base platform that we offer and then what we do. And then there's customization to every single sequence or funnel that we're supporting and campaign that we're working with. And each client has their own nuance. And so it's really a bit about, mending. We're literally creating something new. So it's not like they give us the sales and it's our job to sell them, or we tell them what to do. We're literally creating something new. Their company, our company, we're creating a new experience and we're matching the right people. So when you have your ideal client targeted and they move through the ideal sequence and then have a conversation with somebody who is ideally suited to speak with them, you tend to have a great result and an outcome. And as opposed to just having a lead and a great salesperson, which doesn't always lead to the right outcome. Right. Yep. So it's constantly, how are we doing there? What needs to be tested and tweaked? And, we're always changing and shifting. We try to shift with what the marketplace is doing.
Yep. Can you talk about the salesperson's mindset? Right. Because I've worked with salespeople before. I've had salespeople on my team. And one of the things that I've always found difficult from the business owner standpoint is managing that salesperson. Okay, they've got 5 or 10 bad calls, right? And they start to lose their psyche, they start to lose their confidence. How do you handle that in terms of managing such a large team? Does that come up often, like, motivation and confidence? I mean,
For sure. It comes up all the time. I mean, that's literally my personal belief. I'm not when it comes to the sales conversation, my podcast is called Sales Unscripted, right? I don't believe in script. Not that they don't work. I just don't believe that they're necessary. But what happens is we're all about people peak performing. That's our number one goal. So like, if you imagine the sales team, everybody's planted in the soil. And my job is to inject into the soil everything they need to grow this healthy garden of conversion specialists, right? But so we're constantly putting in, what do they need from a mindset perspective? What do they need from money perspective? What do they need from encouragement, support? And then what we do is literally, we learned a few years ago, we're tracking all of our metrics, and most metrics are lagging indicators, right? They tell you what happened. We were looking, how do we make sure we get ahead of the curve so we can see what's happening and what's about to happen? And we started looking at trends. And the thing we noticed is that 100% of the time, when the results dipped, the first thing that was dipped was their engagement. So we would say, they weren't on team calls, or they haven't been active in the Facebook group, or they're not auditing calls, et cetera. And then we started managing engagement. And we found that once we see engagement dipping, we now grab them and put them into improvement situations, whether it's pulling them out of rotation, giving them a mindset coaching call, or we do what we call CPR calls. So if you're in the middle of the day and you're having your teeth kicked in, which happens, instead of making 2 calls become 10 bad calls, we want you to get on a call, and we call CPR calls. 5-minute call, clear, oops, we get your head right, get you back into action. So it's getting those adjustments, but that requires somebody to be looking at what's going on with them, constant management of what the results are, what their activity is, because most people aren't set up to do that. But fortunately, that's all we do for a living. So managing the environment, engagement is what leads to peak performance.
You said CPR call. That sounds super, super interesting. And it takes only like 5 minutes, you said?
Yeah.
Like, is that really all that is necessary to get a salesperson's mind right?
Yeah, because you just take away the fluff. It's like, what happened? What's going on? What do you think led there? And it's a truth-telling conversation. All right, are you lying? Oh man, it was a great call, but they couldn't. Man, I just couldn't get them over the hump. Okay, what was it who were you being that led them to believe they couldn't afford it? How did you show up? What were you saying? And we're challenging them, and it's a conversation about truth. They're like, yeah, well, I thought they didn't really need it. They told me they didn't need it. They told me they're going to wait till next year. I'm like, do you believe that was the right choice? No. Well, why'd you let them do it? I didn't want to push. I didn't want to get over. Okay. You realize you weren't pushing, right? What's the solution? What could you do? And how could you reach back out to this person? A lot of times it's just a quick confidence boost, something they already know, but they just need to hear. They need to hear some information. They need to hear that they're good. The other thing that happens is amazing things get revealed in these calls. Like, hey, what's going on? You've had like 5 calls today and they're not going the way you want. Something happening. Yeah. My mom went into the hospital yesterday. Now we know something's going on here. Okay, cool. So do we need to help them? Do we need to get them out of the rotation for a bit? Right. But that's stuff that happens if you're engaged, if you create that constant expectation of this is how we work through problems. Mm-hmm. So it's important.
And that's what probably most, business owners wouldn't be able to do, right? Because that becomes a pretty big headache for, the entrepreneur or the business owner who's running their company, may not have a finger on the pulse of, let's say they're managing 3 or 5 salespeople. I mean, like, I can imagine that, you see sales dip from one salesperson. I mean, I wouldn't know how to handle that situation. So I'd see tremendous value.
Yeah. And even if you would know how to handle it, it's just, you're so busy, you're busy running your business. You're busy building an empire. So it's not that you don't even have the smarts to do it. You're just not engaged there. It's not what you do every day. So the likelihood is you're going to, you'll catch it at some point, but by the time you catch it, it might be explosion instead of just a little fire.
Yep.
So that's the biggest challenge for most entrepreneurs. This isn't what your particular skill set is. So you're not spending all your time perfecting it. Whereas this is what we do for a living. So all we do is work on perfecting it.
Fantastic. All right. So I want to kick it into the rewind section now. I mean, we talked a little bit about how you got started into this business. You worked with an expert. They just said, hey, basically, can you do this for me? Throw your feet in the, just kind of trial by fire and came out on top, right? But what was happening before that? What was happening before that led you to that situation, that opportunity?
Well, I've been in sales of every kind. I was I was in network marketing when I was 19. I was in credit collections in college. I learned great lessons through each. Credit collections was really important because I learned that tension matters. Like no tension, no sale. I was horrible at credit collections because I liked people and I believed all their stories. And so I never collected anything. And I noticed that the guys who collected all the most money were the guys who were destroying people on the phone. They were shredding them personally. Now, I couldn't do that, but I did learn that all of the best collectors learned to tap into people's pain. Now, they abused it. I wouldn't recommend that, but I learned a very valuable lesson there. Mm. And I used to have an alarm company where we had offices in 3 cities. They had door knockers and a phone room, and we were constantly, developing people. And you start learning what kind of people thrive in what type of environments, and everybody's not created the same. And so we learned massive valuable lessons there. And then I was in mortgage, and unfortunately, regrettably, I was part of the 2008 meltdown in America because I sold a lot, hundreds of people into loans they had no business being in because I made a lot of money doing it. So I had this massive skill set that I learned as a kid that I learned how to use it on people for my own gain rather than for them, for their benefit. And so in 2008, when all this crisis was going on, the real estate industry was going under and I was going under, I met somebody at a gas station who I did a loan for her mother, her 72-year-old mother. We took a gamble, which I knew wasn't going to pay off. I ran into her daughter a year later at this gas station in the summer in Sacramento. And she walked up to me and she said, "You know what? You're a crook. You're the devil and you deserve whatever happens to you." And I stood there in that moment feeling like I wish a car would have run me over, or I wish she would have hit me or done something, because I knew she was telling the truth. And I never felt lower in my life. And at that moment, everything else started coming back to me. All these, my years of influence, all the things I know. I was like, look, if I'm going to continue in the sales game, I have to figure out how to use these skills for people's betterment and not for mine, because this ain't working. And so I went to town, pulling out everything in my sales process that made people feel bad or made me feel bad. And I put in everything that was of value and of benefit for them, which led to success for me. And now we just have powerful conversations for the truth. We show up purely to see how we can serve and how we can benefit people. Whether you're going to buy or not is irrelevant to me. I just want to know how I can serve you. And all of a sudden, things just start shifting. We start making more money than we've ever made. People say thank you when they buy. Shifts. And now it's led to this massive positioning of us in the industry that I truly just call just a strike of luck. I mean, I was the guy who happened to get hit by this lightning bolt, and it's blessed me in ways that I can't even imagine. But it's been a journey, man.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. So you went from network marketing to credit collections to an alarm company and to mortgages, and then ultimately that whole situation led you to where you are today. You had mentioned during that credit collection journey, no tension, no sale,
yes.
Right? How do you create tension without creating conflict? Like without being, I don't know, not abusive, but like how do you create ethical tension?
That's a great word, ethical tension. I love that concept. It's all about telling the truth. To me, really, if you want the simplest, most boiled down explanation, just learn to tell the truth. Most people struggle in the sales conversation because they don't say what they know they should because they're afraid to. And then when you get off the phone, you're like, oh man, I wish I would have said that. I should have told them this. And most of the time you already knew what to say. You were just so afraid to say it because you didn't want to hurt their feelings. Well, I want to challenge people to talk to people as if they're your closest friend, right? If you went to lunch with your brother, your sister, your best friend, and they said, hey, I'm trying to change this about my health. I know I need to change it. And if I don't, I'm going to have a bad result, but I'm going to wait till next year. What would you say to them? Like, dude, what are you talking about? Get your head out of your butt and go fix this problem, right? But why wouldn't you say that to a potential client when they're telling you the same thing? If you aren't willing to tell them the truth, then you don't care about them enough. And the only difference between telling the truth to abuse somebody and telling the truth to serve somebody is the intention of the heart. As long as you're coming from love and best intentions, I believe you not only can say everything that you need to, you must. That's your job. I take on the gatekeeper perspective. Even though the reality may not be this, you have to show up believing that you may be the first or the last person who will ever tell them the actual truth of their situation? And could you live with yourself knowing that they never got it solved because you weren't willing to stand for their transformation, stand for their their clarity? You have to inspire confidence, clarity, and certainty in them in that moment, or you're never going to serve them.
So how did you learn that from the credit collection side? Because you said that wasn't your style back then, but you saw all the closers, all the people who were making all the money. Obviously, it wasn't the ethical way, but you saw that that's how they were making the sales. How did you take that, learn the lesson, and then ethically apply that? Like how did that all come about?
Well, ironically, I didn't learn it until I was in the alarm game, because I left going, I'll never be able to be that. I can't be that kind of person. And when I was in alarm sales, you start realizing that, you're out there knocking on doors, whether it's raining or 110 degrees, it's Fresno, summer heat, whatever, and you're sacrificing. And why are you doing all this if you're going to let people just not deny themselves? You're showing up in a neighborhood that's got chain link fences, pit bulls, couches on the lawn, and cars on blocks. That's the perfect stereotypical neighborhood to be door knocking for alarms, right? Because there's crime and burglaries or drug dens or whatever. And you show up and you go, people, oh no, this is a great neighborhood. It's been getting better every year. Like, dude, open your eyes. Let's hope, you want to be able to help them see. And I used to go home going, what is wrong with these people? And then I started realizing, okay, they need the truth, but they don't need it the way those guys would do it. So how do I tell them the truth in a way they can actually hear it, right? So you learn, okay, let's talk about that. Your neighbor might be getting better. You know what? And I buy that. But is it where you want it? And if what happened down the street were to happen to you, what would you do about it? I know what's going to happen is 6 months from now, when that happens to you, you're going to call me. I want to prevent that call. I want you to not have to lose something to make that happen. And so what are you willing to give up now so you don't have to give up something later? And let's talk about it. And sometimes it's, what fears do you have? Hey, everybody shows up at my door is trying to get stuff from me. That's awesome. I'm trying to, let's talk about it. Yeah, there's going to be a transaction here, but I'm trying to give you something that you can't get on your own. Do you understand that? Do you see that? Are you in denial about it? And you'd be amazed. I mean, sometimes you can physically see people's veins pop out of their heads because they're getting pissed off at you. How dare you talk to me that way? But they don't shut the door and they don't hang up. Someone was just asking me yesterday, when's the last time somebody hung up on the phone from me? It was 3.5 years ago. It's been a while. And that person called back 2 days later and paid full pay because they got over their issue and then realized the truth was what was mattered. And if you don't tell people the truth, guys, you are losing every day. You're losing from yourself. Part of you is incomplete. I don't care if they say no. I care if they say no if they haven't had the opportunity to see what's really at stake. If you have eyes wide open and you want to go down path B instead of path A, awesome. Do it. But I'm also, when somebody leaves me, I don't ever let them just go, okay, no, we don't want to do it. I say, awesome. What's your plan to solve this? If not me, then what are you going to do? Great. Sounds like a good plan. What's your next step? When are you going to take it? Who's going to hold you accountable? And as long as you can answer those questions with me, I'm going to send you on your way with my blessing and wish you all the best. And I'm not just going to let you walk away in denial.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, I love that. I mean, no tension, no sale. Whenever I'm on a call with a lead or a prospect, and I've never thought about it that way, but I would get the feeling that like, this is too smooth. And when I say too smooth, I mean, it's not like I know it's not going towards a sale because they're not giving me anything. They're just kind of going through the motions, or they're not committed. And
right.
So I can totally see now, like, it's our job to create that tension. And if they don't want to create that tension, then they're not committed. And there's no problem. The problem's not big enough for them. And they're just, they're not a serious buyer at this point. But I like that. No tension, no sale.
Yeah. But on the backside of that, like, I don't let my team get away with that because that's a big thing. I get off a call and they'll be like, okay, this person didn't have enough urgency. Well, did they not have enough urgency? Or did you not ask the questions that revealed urgency? Because they wouldn't have got on the phone with you if they're not trying to solve this problem in some way. But in their mind, it's just something they'd like to try. And you weren't able to break through them to help we call it getting through the piles of denial. Sometimes people have really big piles and you need a really good shovel and great tools. And if your tools aren't sharpened, you'll never dig through the piles of denial and you'll leave them there. Now you've done them a massive disservice because there's only thing worse than not solving the problem is now you've revealed to them there's a solution and they still think they can't solve it. That's your fault. Right? Now you leave them on the side of the freeway stranded. That sucks.
You show them there's a solution, they still can't solve it. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
It's a horrible
man.
way to leave somebody, man. So now that we know there's a solution, what are we going to do about it? Let's figure out how to solve this thing. And you're in it. You have to be the advocate because they don't know how to be. They've given up on their dream so long ago because they haven't figured out how to solve it, or they believe everybody's a snake oil salesman or whatever. Your job is to show them there is a solution and this is the one. And this may be the only one for you. Are you willing to take a risk on it? Because I'm willing to take a risk on you. Because I am. If I'm bringing you on as a client, that means I'm taking a risk on you. So how do we do this together? Right. And you got to challenge it. And digging people out of piles of denial. I heard a phrase yesterday that I loved from Marcellus Wiley. I listened to a lot of ESPN, and they were talking about preparation being the key to separation. And he's a Hall of Fame football player. He's like, the biggest difference between me and my competitors, I dominate guys because I outwork them. I prepare better than everybody else, except for the guys who beat me because they prepared better than me. You want separation? You need to be master of preparation. And that's the key. Most salespeople just get by. Good salespeople do a lot of work and they do better. The guys who can create their own path, write their own ticket, and do anything they want, master the art of influence and persuasion and practice it and own it and sold out to mastery. So you sold out to the art of preparation so that you can create separation between you and everybody else. No other way.
That's fantastic. I'm going to tattoo that saying on my, well, maybe not tattoo it. I'm going to post it on my monitor. No tension, no sale.
Amen.
Because if you don't feel it, it's not going the right way.
Right. And, and there's a lot of people, especially in the coaching industry, because it's so fluffy. We've moved to this place of, I don't ever want anybody to feel bad. I don't want to, your feelings are irrelevant. They're lying and they're fooling and they're temporary. It's your job to create a scenario that promotes growth and change. Nobody's willing to change something if they feel great. So if you get them to a place of, I feel wonderful, what do they need to change for? What do they need to be? It's a dance between tension and pleasure, right? Pleasure and pain, as Tony Robbins says. The only two forces in nature that motivate human beings and move people to action is pleasure and pain.
Yep. And
pleasure doesn't motivate people to take action long term. If it did, we all would prepare for tests when we get the assignment instead of when they're due, right? We would all pay our ticket. We would do the things necessary to avoid penalties, but we don't. We wait till penalties come and then we take action. That's the human condition. And I believe that the only reason people pursue pleasure at all is because they are afraid of pain.
Yep.
And so your job is to make sure that the best way to show them pain is just tell the truth. Pretend that you're a mirror. Like if you go to your bathroom mirror and you got something stuck in your teeth and your fly is down and your hair is messed up, is the mirror going to tell you it's not? The mirror is going to say, hey, guess what? Your hair is messed up. Your teeth are nasty and your fly's down. Now it's up to you what you're going to do about it. Well, your job is to be that mirror for everybody you speak to, and then let them deal with the ugliness of the truth. But you can let them do it in a safe environment because you're not here to harm them. You're here, if they freak out, get upset, hey, you can help work them through it.
Yep. But
your job is to reveal it.
That's fantastic. This has been an incredible conversation. It's opened my eyes to the world of, in-depth sales and consultative selling. Because, in our industry, it should be consultative selling, and it's very much, diagnose and prescribe, right? And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned. I mean, your path through, obviously, your upbringing, and then, network marketing, credit collections, alarm company, mortgages, and that story about what happened to give you that kick in the butt, that kind of, it was an aha moment, but it was kind of like a come to Jesus moment. Like, okay, who do I really want to be? Is this really who I want to be? And how am I going to change that? That's an incredible journey.
Yeah. And no small coincidence to me that it happened when I turned 40. So it was like, I had this very visual image of, I spent the first 40 years in the desert and now I'm ready to do it right. So the next 40 is about serving others instead of serving me.
Yep. That's fantastic. Well, Jim, I've enjoyed our conversation. We've talked about this a ton just in the world of sales. You guys are running an incredible company with, just a ridiculous number of salespeople. I mean, you've got a very good reputation, a solid reputation in the industry. And obviously we've shared a little bit about, how to go about the art of sales, the ethical way of creating tension and just serving prospects and getting to understand that they have a problem and they need to have it solved. where can people connect with you? Where can people find more information about you and your company?
Yeah, the best way is we got a Facebook group called See You at 7, all spelled out, SEEYOU at the number 7. And the goal is, we want to help you get to 7 figures. So we want to see you at the top, and whether help you get to your 7 or get to your next 7. And so we're always talking about scaling and growing business and sales teams and leverage. So jump in, join in the conversation. I'm there. My team's there. We can help you and answer questions. And so that's a great way to go. I also like to offer you a gift for people who are, if you're booking consultations and having sales conversations, we actually believe in that. In fact, you can make more sales without getting better at selling. And one of the ways is by getting more people to actually show up. You don't even have to get better. You just gotta have more conversations with the people that you're trying to get in front of. And so we have a resource that we want to give you. It's our show up sequence. It's just basically 5 key strategies to get people to show up for your sales conversations and show up with expectation and anticipation, knowing that there's something here, so they don't show up going, "What are you going to sell me?" or not show up at all. And so I'll give you the link here for it. But it's our show up sequence. So it's gtenow.com/show up. And I'll give you the link. So it'll be in the show notes, of course.
Yep.
And go there, check it out, try to put it into play. And then I will tell you right now, once you get there, there's going to be an offer for a $47 offer. It's a super simple, easy offer. But it says, we made our first $2 million in our business before we ever spent 1 penny on marketing. Mm-hmm. And it's all through relationship building and partnerships and strategies. And I've got a really cool resource that walks you through exactly how we did it. And for $47, if you do that, and then we want to offer you, take advantage of that. You take that offer, reach out to us, respond with an email that says 2 free months. And we're going to give you 2 free months access to our Peak Performance Network, where we are pouring into salespeople on a regular basis. You got weekly calls and everything. So we're just trying to give you as much as we can to help support you. So hope that's enough, not too much, but it's, we want you to win, because you are a salesperson. Every single person here, if you don't master the art of influence, you can't win in business. You can't win in life. You can't go out and secure VC investors. You can't get your wife to do anything. You can't get your kids to listen. You can't get your team to do what they need to do. You need to be able to master the art of influence. So get as much help as you can in that. And we're here to help you on the journey.
Awesome, Jim. It's been a pleasure having you on the call today. If you're listening right now, go connect with Jim. We'll put all of his links down in the show notes. Take him up on his offer and just connect with him and let him know, hey, I heard you on Experts Unleashed, and give him some love. It's been a fantastic conversation. I know that you've picked up on a ton of value that Jim has shared, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in, and take care.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Experts Unleashed. If you're looking for new and innovative ways to design and execute your plan to become a 6 or 7-figure expert without the massive team, apply now at theperfectexpert.com.